Today's lesson is on the principles of design. They include balance, emphasis, contrast, rhythm, proportion, unity, and economy. Balance can be visual balance as well as physical balance. It's basically how distributed the elements that are for a design. We have symmetrical or formal balance, asymmetrical, also known as informal balance, and radial balance. Symmetrical balance is right here. You can see there's symmetry. Symmetry is where the same things are the same on either side. Elements are identical in visual weight on one side or another relative to a center line. See this one, you can also see symmetrical. The left and right is pretty much equally weighted. Same with the Taj Mahal on the right, equally weighted. Asymmetrical balance is where they're not identical, but they're arranged to provide balanced visual weight. So this one on the left is smaller, and this one on the big is larger. So it's informal balance. It's still arranged, one on the left more, this one farther on the left, this one more in the center. This image of Red Square in Moscow, again, it shows two buildings. One's taller and skinnier on the right, and shorter and wider on the left. That's his asymmetrical or informal balance. Radial balance is when you've got components distributed around a center point, such as in this wheel that you see, or such as this cupola in the church. Emphasis is what is used to draw our attention to a particular area. The focal point is what our eye gets attracted to. If you notice this image on the right, emphasis is used to draw our attention to one particular area. In this image on the right, we're drawn to this bright area, and then from there, we're drawn to the dark area, which is the person right there. The focal point is whatever attracts the eye. If in this image on the left, our eye is drawn to this drawing up on the ceiling, because even if you see the person, you want to look at where they're looking at, and they're looking up at the ceiling. Emphasis can be achieved through size, by placement, by shape, contrast, or even use of lines. Emphasis is basically what they're trying to draw our eye to. This seatbelt, obviously, they're trying to emphasize the button that allows you to go ahead and get out in case you need to get out of the seatbelt. Contrast is a relative difference. Here, the one red one contrasts significantly with the green ones. In this image at the top right, we've got a skyscraper, a very bright color, contrasting with the very earthy tones of this brownstone building. We've got contrast in this image at the bottom right, both green bushes contrasting with the red ones, as well as what looks like a fountain. Contrast can be used to emphasize an element, such as here, this bright yellow color shows us where the humans are going to be, where people are going to be sitting in this taxi. Rhythm is repeated use of lines, shapes, colors, textures, or patterns, such as in this music here. A harmonious pattern or sequence. It can be regular, random, gradated, or graduated. Regular rhythm is where that same element is repeated at the same interval, such as these tiles here. We typically see regular rhythm in tiles in bathroom and kitchens most of the time. Even in this apartment building here, we have this diamond shape is repeated regularly. Random rhythm is where we have repetition at random or irregular intervals. We have these, what looks like cement blocks are randomly throughout all of this metal. This church in Red Square has, as you can see, they have these little onion-shaped domes at the top. Very irregular, different shape, different sizes, different colors. But it still is a similar type of shape, but it's at random locations. Gradated rhythm is where you have the same element that's identical, other than one thing is decreasing or gradually either increasing or decreasing. This in the center, you see these matryoshki or stacking dolls. The exact same shape gets smaller and smaller and smaller. On the right-hand side, you see this gazebo keeps getting smaller and smaller as you get taller, just as the same way that these rocks are on the left. Here is a graduated rhythm where a repeated element becomes closer together or farther apart. You can see we've got our model on the right-hand side. As we get closer to her, these little spheres become farther apart, and it gets a lot lighter. You see a lot more of that open space. And on the left-hand side, the circle spheres get a lot closer together. It looks a lot brighter, greenish, yellowish. Proportion is the relative comparative relationship between elements in a design relative to size. At the top, you see a weather vane on the left-hand side, which is unusual because it's very large, and next to a person that's very, very small. So definitely, proportion looks kind of odd, stands out in this image. The scale is the proportion or size of an element in relation to the other elements. In this image at the bottom, we have the Lincoln Memorial and the Capitol on either side of the Washington Monument. You can see the monument, obviously, Washington Monument looks very, very tall and thin, much taller, but yet not as important, let's say, as the Lincoln Memorial in this particular image. Certainly, the Capitol is much smaller, much more minor detail, much smaller in terms of scale. Unity is the consistent use of design elements. At the top right, you can see we've got similar shapes of trees throughout this park. At the bottom left, in this what looks like a college dorm area, everything's all that red brick that you very often would see in the older college buildings. And the bottom right, all of these stacking dolls or matryoshki, you can see consistently they're using similar shapes and similar facial shapes, similar facial features. Economy is the use of the bare minimum of elements. You can see here in this vehicle what looks like the gas tank cover has a little E and F, implies obviously that there's not a whole lot of gas there. In simplicity, there's beauty. Economy is the idea that less is more. This image at the bottom right is definitely showing an economy for a car. It looks very sleek. It looks interesting, but you can see there's a lot that's missing there from what you would typically see from a car. This at the top looks very small, but definitely it looks like a very interesting design, a different interesting use of economy. You're going to be learning more about this visual design elements and principles matrix later on.